What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports podcast where we are not here to play school. We're here to break down the college football slate for your Saturday. Jake Micah, joined by my brother Alex Micah. We have a great slate of games. Well, we don't really have a great slate of games. We have one great game
it's a lot of buys this Saturday, honestly, but there's a couple of great games to look at for
Getting ready for the greater month of November where it goes all the way to the end. But we have Penn State and Ohio State on the marquee, one of the biggest games of the year in the noon slot. We'll talk about that. We also are going to talk about the rest of the top five because they're all in games that they should win. They're all two possessions. Miami now playing Duke, one of the games, teams in the top five, obviously, is up to a 21-point favorite, so a three-possession game. But all games that are worth at least keeping an eye on Saturday, where this could be. There's always one we had a decent chaotic Saturday earlier, but if we had one this late in the season where a couple of these teams go down unexpectedly, who knows, man? Like it could get wild down the stretch here. But first, we're going to look at our playoffs that we picked before the season, and just see where we're at with these. So
first official college football playoff poll. First official poll comes out next Tuesday. So let's see how close we were from the beginning of the year.
All right, hold on. I need to let the people know what we're looking at. How close were our preseason CFB predictions? There we go. All right. So here we go. We're putting you up on the spot first.
All right, let's see.
Boy.
I feel semi-confident. The Big 12 is a miss. I know that.
Couple teams. The Big 12 is a miss. Texas at number 1, very feasible. Ohio State at number 2, feasible there. Utah is not going to be the third seed or make the playoff.
No.
Clemson very well could win the ACC and be the 4 seed, so I think you're good there. And then you had Bama winning the SEC, which it's a stretch at the moment.
Well, not winning the SEC, no, because Texas.
Oh, Texas well then
wins.
So
I had Bama making it to the SEC championship, but losing to Texas.
Okay.
Which I don't think will happen now because it's a 2-loss Bama team.
Yeah. Notre Dame at 12, though, feels like it could be a spot where they get in.
Possible.
Miami and Penn State, very possible points. Oregon there, over there. Oklahoma State, probably not going to make it. No. And Memphis has an outside chance, but Boise.
They do. They're 7-1 in the American, but their losses to Navy, and I don't know if there's a way for them to gain traction back on Navy during the season at all. And so it looks like it's like Navy's only loss is Notre Dame, so non-conference. It seems more and more likely that Navy Army is going to be your AAC championship game, and then they're going to play each other again the week after. So who knows? I mean, one of them getting in would be interesting. But no, I feel so. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've 8 out of the 12 teams that I have. Maybe not in the right spot, but 8 out of the 12 making it in. I think that's not bad.
You're not accounting for an Iowa State or an Indiana here or a Tennessee in here. Those are all the teams that you didn't
no, but you know what? Those Tennessee still has to play Georgia, so if Georgia takes care of business, then they're going to be a 2-loss team. They won't be in. Iowa State, yeah. I mean, that's the Big 12 was such a mess this year. Honestly.
Yeah, well, BYU too. Like, none of us, we could have not predicted that.
I mean, going with the favorites, Utah and Oklahoma State, and that was not a good plan.
All right,
but
I did not have a better time than you, though. That's for sure. Oh, is this yours again here? This is. Hold on one second.
That's mine again. Yeah.
Let me get this up here. I did not have a better fate than you, really, at all. Georgia at number 1, feasible. Ohio State at number 2, Miami at 3. All good spots. Utah missed. Really, this isn't as bad as I thought, except I have some big swings and misses here. Utah we both had there. Texas could be 5 very well. Boise's on a good path for that group of 5. Penn State, Tennessee could be an 8, 9. Kansas, terrible. It was a bad pick on my part. I'm not going to deny. No, don't act like Kansas was going to be bad. No one thought Kansas was going to be this bad.
No one thought they were like a top 5 team in the Big 12, though.
No one knew what to expect from the Big 12. No one thought BYU was going to win the Big 12 either.
No.
So I don't want to hear anything about the Big 12. I took a swing on a Big 12 team. I missed. That's all right. Notre Dame's in a good spot there, though. And then Virginia Tech is good, but they're not great. So I didn't have Clemson in here.
You were cashing out on Clemson. You were like, Clemson doesn't have it anymore. Yeah.
But I feel good about the rest of this after looking at it. It's really only the two big misses, and everybody missed on Utah and had them in these brackets.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
I'm not upset about that. So yeah, not a bad look, but I don't think I agree with this now, because I would have Clemson in this top 4 probably. Honestly, I think they'll beat Miami in an ACC title game. I wouldn't have Ohio State at number 2. It's either going to be Penn State or Oregon there, I think.
Yeah.
Georgia might be number 1. that might stay. But
I mean, highly possible. I mean, sitting at 2 right now.
And I think if Texas loses twice to Georgia, they end up the 5 seed, because they'll be like, you lost to the best team in the nation twice. We'll give you a nice big game.
I think no matter what, both of us, I had Texas at 1, which Texas at 1 is hard. I don't think they can get back to that spot. Maybe in the top 4, depending on how the rest of the season goes.
They can get to 1 if they win out and win the SEC title.
I don't know if they'll get to 1 though. I don't know
how would they not get to 1? How would it not get to 1?
Because if Oregon just stays undefeated, if Oregon's 13-0, undefeated, and they win the Big Ten championship, and they're already holding that 1 spot, I think they just stay at 1.
I find it very unlikely Oregon's going
to be there's obviously that it's going to be interesting to see. We can check back in on this, obviously, after this big week where there's some big games, but also after Tuesday when the poll comes out.
All right, yeah, so let's get into the games. We got to talk the biggest one tonight. Well, not tonight, I guess. It's in a couple hours. Noon Eastern on Fox. Early game, right to start off hot.
I think you got the
Ohio State.
Ohio State's a favorite.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right.
Penn State plus 3.5.
You're right. No, I always just put it on the favorite side.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah, Ohio State favored by 3 points.
There you go.
The only reason Ohio State in my mind is truly favored is because if you put Ohio State at even if they had them at minus 2.5, the public is putting all their money on Ohio State. And at this time, what I'm seeing, I'm going to get this up here. I want to see what the betting handle is on here, but I think this should at least be an even line between these two teams. And I think that Vegas can't do that because they know everybody will just take Ohio State and they have to make it even. I think this is a dead even matchup in Happy Valley. If it was in Columbus, I would say yes, Ohio State should be favored by a little bit. I think in Happy Valley, this is a dead even matchup, and you could tell me anything about this game and I will believe it, because I think there's a lot of different outcomes, and I'm really interested to see how these two teams match up. It's strength versus strength, in my opinion, with these two teams. It's going to be a battle in the trenches as much as anything, and I'm just interested to see how it plays out. Mo he's just so nice. He's already chalked up the loss, and he's trying to figure out how Penn State figures out their way back into the playoff the rest of the year. It's already done in his.
Well, they should. I mean, I before the season, I said I thought Penn State was a 9-3 football team. At this point of the season, I don't see 3 losses in the regular season, but I still see 1 loss, and that's this game. The
line is actually, I need to alter this line one more time, because it's actually now down to Ohio State minus 3, and 58% of the bets are on the Nittany Lions. So people, they bit on that plus 3.5 and said, we will gladly take that for Penn State, and shifting that way. Just wanted to update that.
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. Ohio State's won seven straight.
Will you stop sounding defeated already? The game hasn't even happened.
I know.
Seen a snap. You've watched these two teams. You just tell me you watched Ohio State last week against Nebraska and just have like an embarrassing performance in a team that just had lost by 50 the day before. And Penn State's backup quarterback decides to come in and put 2 touchdown drives together and win on the road, and the vibes are bad coming into this game. There's no bad vibes if you're a Penn State fan coming into this game.
The bad vibes are because it's the same shit, different year.
It doesn't matter. It's a new season. Look at what's in front of you today. Don't worry about the bum ass Sean Clifford teams that can never get anything done. They got Drew Allaire and Nick Singleton, Mo. That's what's going on here. And Tyler Warren. They've never had a Tyler Warren on this team.
They had Tyler Warren. He's been there for 4 years.
Not this version of Tyler
Warren. Helped it. No, not this version.
This version of Tyler Warren. Come on. He ain't been this every year.
All right.
I'm just saying, if you look at it objectively, this game is right down the middle, and that should favor the home team. And Penn State has played more than well enough, besides one game against Bowling Green earlier in the season, that they are a different team than they've been in years past. That they're more sound. Because even if you want to go all the way back to that 2016, 2017, how much of that was boomer bust on offense? Between Saquon Barkley and Trace McSorley, how much of that was we have to deliver on a deep ball, or Saquon needs to break off a 50-yard run in this and get something done? And that's why in these big moments, it wasn't as sustainable. Now, they had the athletes on that team to do that, but this team is, we're just gonna pummel you. And then if we need to throw, we have a 6'4" giant with a cannon of an arm who can get us out of this. This is a different team, Mo, than they've ever had any year, and different quarterback than I will gladly say this is the best quarterback that they've had, the way he is for what they want to do offensively, because he's more, he won't make the mistakes. In the game that he did make the mistakes, he made outstanding plays to make up for it. So I just think it's going to be different at home. And you got to think about him too, Mo. This turned into a pep talk for you all of a sudden. You got to think about Drew Allaire.
You're not saying anything that I haven't thought of. Or
hold on. This is my last point. Then you can jump in. What I think about Drew Allaire too. The way he's responded this year, he's looked this year, everything else. We've talked about how much more confident and comfortable he looks. The worst feeling he had, he said it himself, was that Ohio State game last year, because that was his home state team, who he probably always wanted to go to Ohio State. They didn't even want to go near him. And he goes to Columbus in a big game, much like this. And it was terrible, right? There was a horrible, no good, very bad day in Columbus and at home against Michigan that year. So I just feel like that guy, he was going to, first of all, no surprise that he's going to be playing in this game. But I just like that factor of coming back a year later with a better team at home. I don't know, man. It just feels like it's an alignment. And the way you've watched the games this year, you can't tell me that like Ohio State is clear head and shoulders better than this Penn State team. And that's why you're nervous. You're just nervous because of trauma, which is fair, but it's not. It's not valid.
I'll give you this. You and me have had this discussion this year that like the Penn State and USC game, or in the Penn State and Wisconsin game, both of those games, past James Franklin teams, they're losses. They're not coming back against those teams and winning that game at all. Or like last week against Wisconsin, they're not going to be able to have your backup quarterback and come and win. We saw that against Iowa back in 2021, where Sean Clifford got hurt and they were up. I can't remember the exact point, but they were up like 10 points in that game, and they completely blew it. Daquan Roberson couldn't do anything. He had and obviously that's a very tough environment, but it's not like Wisconsin isn't hard either. Roperville came in, led that offense well. The defense made plays when it needed them to. On paper, yeah, it seems like, or not even just on paper. Watching the games, you'd say, yeah, this is a different team. Ohio State, for whatever you want to say about them playing against Nebraska or playing, down to the level of anybody else, they play so much better against Penn State that it's just like it doesn't matter. These guys show up when they need to, and it's always against Penn State. Where it's like I wouldn't be surprised if Jeremiah Smith has like 5 touchdowns in this game.
See, no, that's you're
five. Five's a lot. Five's a lot.
You're acting too much. It's already too
Five's
much.
Five's a lot.
Ohio State only. Ryan Day is like 62-9. He doesn't only get up for Penn State games. I'm saying though they lost by 1 point to Oregon. They don't get. It's not like they only get up for these.
I'm not saying they only get up for this. I'm saying though, when people think they're down, it's like, oh, maybe this is Penn State's year. No, Ohio State's just like, no, we're the better team always.
Well, yes, that's what it is. But that's what I'm saying. You're talking about years past. I'm talking about what you've watched on the field for 7 weeks of football.
And I'm saying you can't trust what you saw, because it's different. It's different when they're playing them.
No,
I think Ohio State is much better than what they looked like against Nebraska last week. I think they're a much better team than that.
Oh, I'm not only putting this on the Nebraska game.
I understand.
Go ahead.
I'm saying that you can't use that as the litmus test, because that game was the anomaly on their season.
I'm not using it as a litmus test. I've watched them a lot this year. They've struggled in a lot of these games and pulled away late is what has happened. You can't struggle in a game like this. against Penn State on the
Well,
road.
Penn State can't do anything in the first half. So if they get a comfortable lead, it's not going to matter.
They haven't been able to
know.
get a comfortable lead. That's the thing.
I don't know. College game day is here most times, all time. So they got that going for them at least. Breaks the tie that they had with LSU Alabama, which is going to happen just next week, and I'm sure that's probably going to be game day next week. So it's just going to be a tie again. But for a week, the Big Ten can have this moment. I don't know. Drew Lair's playing, which is great. We don't know about Denai Dennis Sutton, who injured his groin against Wisconsin and tried to come back and played a little bit, but not that much. If he is able to play, that's what I think is going to be as big a deal as if Drew could play. It's because if him and Abdul Carter are going against this very injured Ohio State offensive line, that's going to be the game breaker. And you were talking about in the trenches, that left side of Ohio State's line is rough. They were already down to their second string tackle, and he's out for the year now. And now they have a guy at left guard. They moved their left guard over. The guy who's playing left guard has not really played that much football. It'll be interesting to see. They do have their safety coming back in this week. I saw Ryan Day talking about, can't remember, let's see. I can't remember his name exactly. He missed last week, but he's back in. And he's having a good season. It's not. Let's see, Penn State, Ohio State. This is not. Google's going slow. Let's see. Zen Mahalski's not playing. That's a tackle.
Yep.
And where is the safety? Ransom. Lathan Ransom is coming back, who had missed time due to a foot injury. So that's big for their defense. And their defensive line is still good. They still have Jack Sawyer and JT T. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. Who had one of the greatest defensive games of all time against a Penn State team 2 years ago. Obviously, that's 2 years ago, so you can't use that as like a baseline. But I don't know. I've gotten myself hyped up and convinced myself that Penn State's going to win in the past, and I'm not going to do it this year. That's what it comes down to.
That's fair. I just don't think it's as surefire as you're putting it to. I think this is.
It's probably going to be a gross, low-scoring game, just the same way as the game last year was in Columbus. It was 20-12. This game's probably going to be like 21-10. Again, that's pretty much the same score. But yeah, that's what it's going to be.
So you're picking Ohio State 21-10 is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't feel confident. This is a game where I flip every single year.
I just want to confirm. I'm picking Penn State to win 21-17.
The only thing that'll make me have faith is if whatever opening drive that Penn State has, whether they get the ball first or second, whatever, is if Julian Fleming scores his first career touchdown as a Nittany Lion against Ohio State. Then I'll know the vibes are good.
That's the only thing.
That's the only thing.
Okay.
That's the only thing.
Noted.
That first drive, he needs to score.
Okay. No pressure, Julian. No pressure.
Well,
Let's go to the SEC. The Georgia Bulldogs playing in the world's largest cocktail party in Jacksonville.
Outdoor cocktail party.
Yeah, I guess the indoor cocktail party. Who knows?
They don't call it that anymore, which I didn't know. They don't call it that. It's
not the world's largest anymore.
I think it's because the branding was like, supporting alcoholism or whatever.
Well, it is kind of crazy that this college football game is the world's largest cocktail party.
Oh, you know what? That way they got the official beer of college football and stuff. So I don't think it matters anymore. True. Bring it back. Bring back the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I'm
gonna figure this out. This is prep that maybe you should have done before, but you know what? We're bringing it here. It still says no, I don't think it is called it anymore. It just says Florida-Georgia football rivalry. Interesting. Well, anyways, although that name is no longer officially used. Yep, that's what it says here. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what can you do?
One of our few neutral site games, purely neutral site games that we still have in college football. One that the fans don't really like, from what I was seeing on the internet, that they're not too happy about, especially because they play this game every year in Jacksonville, Everbank Stadium, and they announced for 2026 they're going to be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and then in 2027 they're going to be at Raymond James Stadium down in Tampa. for renovations at Everbank, and fans were like, they'll do anything just not to have this home and home. Which a 2-year lull because they're doing construction does seem like it would have been good to have a home and home, honestly. But I don't know. I like that it's a neutral site.
I don't know. I wish this game was on campus. I wish Georgia and Florida would play at least one game on campus. And I guess this would be the perfect time to do it back. That would be crazy. But the thing is, if you bring it out, you let that out of the can.
Then they're never going back.
Yeah. And I'm sure this is a big alumni thing and like that type of event where it's like, let's go all meet at this party down here. There's so many people, probably in that area of like Florida and Georgia that just live around there, and they all just can flock to the one place for it. So it makes a lot of sense for
the most full of that stadium is going to be the rest of this year, probably.
Hey, come on. But what? So any, it's a 14.5 point spread here. This Florida team is obviously basically nothing's going on for them, but they're 4-3. They're not like some, washover team. Like they're not Florida State, if we're being honest.
No, and their losses are to really good teams.
What's that?
Florida's losses are to really good teams. They lost to Miami week 1, who is the number 5 team in the country, undefeated. They lost to A&M, who every week is proving people as they're one of the top teams in the SEC. And they lost to Tennessee in overtime, 23-17.
And they lasted Kentucky last week, who had Georgia on the ropes. So Florida the next 2 weeks, they have Georgia and then Texas. And then they get LSU and Ole Miss just for fun. It's a tough stretch for the Florida game.
It's the hardest schedule. I mean, before the season, people were like, why would they do this to Florida? It's the toughest schedule in college football. And it's like, it really is. It's rough.
Tough for the Gators.
It is. I don't know. I mean, I don't really like it. I hope this game is close. Obviously, like any rivalry game, and we've seen that from Georgia this year. Like that game against Kentucky, that you would think, oh, they're going to come in, they're going to blow them out, and it was, it came down to the wire, the fourth quarter. That's what you can hope for in this game, at least. I'm sure ABC is hoping for that. It being the 3:30 game.
I think this is going to be a close game. I really do. I think it's everything you just said about Florida. They've played. Even they lost by, it wasn't a close game against A&M as close as the score looked. But that game against Tennessee is pretty encouraging. Like the play since that 1-2 start, they've either won by double digits or lost in overtime the last 4 weeks. Like that's pretty damn good.
They're figuring out. Bill Napier's kind of figuring it out what they have with that team. They were figuring out the quarterback situation, which was kind of a mess. DJ Lagway was playing a little bit, and Graham Mertz was playing. I don't think they really were set on who they wanted to go with, and so they were splitting time for a lot of weeks. I don't know. It seems like the final, like they don't really have a run game. That's kind of an issue that they have to lead on. Like Montreal Johnson Jr.
They're 77th in the nation in rushing.
It's not ideal. But I don't know. It's those rivalry games you can never predict, and so I think they'll be close. They've looked like you said, they've looked like a better team down the stretch. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they put a fight. And I don't think Carson Beck has looked good the last 4. We didn't see him play last week. Obviously, had the win against Texas. He didn't play good in that game. He had 3 interceptions. And most of those scoring drives they had started on the plus side of the field because that Georgia defense was incredible. So I mean, if Florida draws them into some turnovers and they're able to get anything going against that Georgia defense, then I mean, this game is going to be close. Carson Beck hasn't played like a good quarterback at all. So I think they're giving the defense that 14.5 more so than any trust in the offense for Georgia.
Oh, I completely agree. Yeah, I think this is going to be a close game. I think that Florida will have some success through the air, like you were saying. The Lagway's been playing better as the stretch has gone on. They've had some high scoring games the last couple weeks. But Georgia's going to get this done. Georgia's not losing this one.
I think so. But to look at Georgia too, their next 2 games, Ole Miss and Tennessee, both ranked in the top 20. Yeah. So it's not easy for them. One thing can't leave out, this is Trevor Etienne's return game against the team he's transferred from. I can't say return home because it's at a neutral site, but played at Florida the last couple of years and then left to go to play at Georgia. So, that could be two things. Either that defense that's still there is like, fuck that guy, or he's gonna be like, fuck this team. So
That's
it's
true.
always something to look at.
See where the revenge goes. Let's stay in the state of Florida. The Miami Hurricanes hosting the Duke Blue Devils in a game. 21 points surprises me.
I need a bell or something for an upset where I'm calling it. I wish I had a bell.
You're calling the upset here?
I'm calling the upset. Duke is getting the dub. Manny Diaz revenge game against the Hurricanes.
Okay, that's a good angle. I like that. How are they going to stop Cam Ward?
Because they can lock down any of those receivers. They have only let up 100-yard receiver the entire season. That was against SMU last week in a game that they lost only by 1 point. Take away Xavier Restrepo, who is not putting up he has really good numbers, second in the ACC in touchdowns and in yards. But it's putting up historic numbers from Miami. He is, I want to get this exactly right. Xavier Restrepo is only 8 catches and 119 yards away from having the Miami records for both. And that's, you're looking at, Michael Irvin and Reggie Wayne, that he's breaking their records. Shut down Xavier Restrepo. The last couple of weeks, Miami has not had any kind of run game. Make them try to run the ball on you. And that's, you take Cam Ward out of the equation, I think is what Duke has to try to do. Duke, their 2 losses this year was a touchdown loss against Georgia Tech and a 1-point loss last week where they went for 2 in overtime and didn't get it.
Hey, and I will never fault you for that, Coach. That's what you should do every time. Go for the win. Didn't work out, but great game.
And didn't get it. Yeah. They are a good football team. They don't put up a lot of points, but the defense has been good. They only let up 18 points a game.
20th in the country defensively for points against. Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah. Against, obviously, Miami has the top offense in the country, 48.6 points a game. Is that what it is? Or 46.8? I can't. 46.8 points a game. Number one in the nation. But their defense has been good this year for the Blue Devils. And we know Manny Diaz can have a good defense. When he first left Miami and was coming to Penn State as a DC, I was like, I don't want that. And he showed what he can do and had a top defense in the nation with that talent. And what he's doing now with these Blue Devils, I think it's highly possible that this game is going to be an upset. And Miami has almost been upset already this year, 3 different times?
Yeah.
Against Virginia Tech, where they won on a Hail Mary. They had to have that crazy comeback at Cal. And then they only won by 7 points against Louisville, 59-45. And so they can get score on like crazy. So I'm going with Duke just because of the fun of it, honestly. And because I don't think this Miami team is Miami's perfect at all. I think they're just waiting for the right team to have them slip up. And so why not Duke?
I'm with you. I'm ringing my upset bell too. I think that they get it done. I think they turn over Cam Ward, who loves to throw the ball into pressure or throw it into harm's way a lot of times. And I think Duke will take advantage. This defense will get after them. This game will be sloppier than Miami wants it to be, and it'll play right into Duke's hands. I think Duke gets it done. Yeah, like you're saying, Miami is due for a slip up here. We got to call an upset on one of these games. We can't bring all these games up without calling one upset. And I feel good about the Duke one. Miami, the rest of the way, too, can still go 11-1 and be a safe playoff team heading into that matchup potentially with Clemson in the ACC title game. But SMU hanging around there, too, and Pitt. So it's an interesting ACC race. And those two teams, so
that's a game we're not talking about this week, but Pitt SMU 7-0 Pitt 7-1 SMU this week. That's huge for the ACC.
The last game here, I want to touch on this more than Mo has no faith in the Michigan Wolverines pulling the upset against Oregon, and I need to entertain this because again, Oregon being the number 1 team in the country, I don't think they're the best team in the country. I think I've watched 7 weeks of football, and yes, Oregon has gotten through unscathed. They've had the great win against Ohio State at home. It's an Ohio State team that I obviously wasn't. I think they're good, but I think they're going to lose to Penn State. So the team that could be a 2-loss team is their best win on the schedule. They dominated Illinois last week, so I'll give them that credit because Penn State didn't do that. That's the difference between these 2 teams there. But the rest of their schedule is pretty mid besides beating Boise State by 3, right? So this is a team who their 3 toughest games against now ranked opponents, Illinois, Ohio State, and Boise, all have been at home. And their road games this year, Oregon State, who's bad, UCLA, who's bad, Purdue, who is miserable. This is their first road game of the year. that is a team of actual substance, right? Like and this is not a good Michigan football team, but they're 5-3, and their biggest win of the season was beating USC at home in a game no one thought they were going to get that one done. At least they lost to Texas earlier in the year against when they were number 3 in the nation. So there's not a lot of if it gets into if it gets into the 30s, basically they're not going to win this game. But there is a world where Oregon, we've seen the trouble that teams have been having going cross coast for these games. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere in the Big House. It's their biggest home game of the year left. I just think there's a path for Michigan. I still think Oregon's going to get out of this, but I think this is a really interesting matchup on Saturday, and is a spot where we should look to Oregon to slip up, because it's just a tough game, and a tougher game than they've had all year, because they've went on the road and played some bums.
Your points you're making are completely are valid. And I mean, obviously that's been the biggest, like, those first 2 weeks of the season when we were watching Oregon, it was like, why is this team even in the top 5? Like, are they really that respected? They kept on dropping, obviously, until that big win against Ohio State. I don't know. I just don't. And like you said, if the score gets too high, Michigan needs to just try to control the flow of the game, absolutely, with their run game. Otherwise, Oregon's just gonna blow them out of the water. Dillon Gabriel, whatever you think of him as a quarterback, is just so efficient this year, and such a good game manager that, even their short passing game is their run game, as a lot of people would say.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, they can just control the game too. And going cross country, I don't know the exact number now, but obviously I think teams are 4 and 15 or something like that going cross country. So it's not completely unheard of. Obviously the team traveling usually isn't doing the best. I don't know. I would still stick. I don't know. I don't think there's gonna be any upset in this one. I just think Oregon is too talented all around, and Michigan is just, they're a mid football team. They're gonna be 8-4, maybe, or 7-5. Are they gonna beat Ohio State at the end of the year? Probably not. And it was just because they had too much turnover on talent over this last year, and that offense is just bare.
Decimated.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
get what you're saying.
I think this is a one-score game either way. I think this is at most it's 27-20 Oregon.
That's fair. Oregon has been subject to this the entire season, where they're getting way too big of spreads that we're head scratching. What is going on here? Why is this happening? And that's fair. 14 is a lot, especially the traveling team to be up 14. But yeah, I don't know. Did you give a score prediction, or are you just saying it's a one-score game?
27-20 Oregon. That's what I'm saying.
27-20?
Yeah.
That's pretty close to what the USC score, wasn't it?
27-24 is what Michigan won, yeah. Michigan's wins this year, they've only scored 30 points one time, and it's been 28, 27, 27, 24, 24, I think, or something like that.
So really, if they can't get to 30,
there is a formula. Yeah. Yes. If Oregon gets to 30, it's over. So Michigan needs to win this game 24-20.
I thought Oregon was going to win last week against Illinois. I was shocked in the manner that they did so. Yeah. Where they just decimated that team.
Well, we predicted it. We said if it gets out early, Illinois cannot come back.
No, they couldn't keep up
all the way through, and it was 21-0 before you could even blink. Yeah. So it was all right, this game's done. I turned it on late. I don't remember, maybe the noon game went late or whatever. I turned it on late, and Oregon was kicking the field goal for 14-0, and I said, all right, I turned that off right away. It's I'm not watching this game. I know this is Oregon's going to destroy them, and that's exactly how it went.
They did.
It's going to be a fun Saturday, though. I think we're getting at least one of these as an upset, and Penn State, Ohio State will deliver. Mo, anything else on the slate of games?
On this overall slate, well, like I said Pitt, SMU.
That's a good one. Louisville and Clemson is an interesting game. In Clemson, though, A&M at South Carolina, also an interesting game. That's ABC Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean that South Carolina team.
South Carolina at home is just a different animal. Whatever it is.
It is. It's extremely scrappy. Let's see. Air Force Army.
Texas Tech going to Iowa State is an interesting game too. That Texas Tech team is very fun.
Well,
they're 5-3, 3-2.
Give a shout
Go
out
ahead.
to the local boys. UB at Akron, taking on your hated Akron Zips,
Yeah.
who are
Yep.
1-7 this year. Gotta get just UB.
Yep.
Gotta get things back on track after the loss the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was a tough loss last week too.
Yeah, like you said it. Texas Tech, Iowa State, no.
This Tech game, Tech's quarterback, Morton here, Baron Morton. I didn't know how to really pronounce this. I'm gonna go with Baron though. He's got 2,000 yards on the year passing, 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. I don't know. Kentucky at Tennessee, upset rivalry game. Never know.
Tennessee's not losing that one. Not losing that one. I think A&M,
Wisconsin, Iowa. If you want to watch some real good 5-3 Big Ten football, that's a game for the Floyd of Rosedale. Oh, come on.
That's a gross game. I would say if you're gonna watch any of the other games that we didn't talk about today, the next on my or games that could be upsets, I'd say A&M at Carolina. I'd be worried about A&M, and I would say Iowa State. This Iowa State team's not going to go 12-0. Being at home, a little bit more interesting, but Tech's a good team because they really don't. Kansas State is at home at the last week of the season, but it's at Kansas, home to Cincinnati, at Utah. Besides this Tech game, so Iowa State really they're going to be cruising if they get past Texas Tech Saturday. So I don't know. I think Tech could give them a game there. But that's it. All right. We're not here to play school. We broke down the games. For Alex Micah, this is Jake Micah. Have a great Saturday, folks, and enjoy the